So could a simple picture like this one save a life? It's a brain scan that some argue shows brain damage. There is a battle brewing in Tampa courtrooms between the doctors and the lawyers over the controversial brain test that created the images. Attorneys defending some of the Bay Area's most notorious accused murderers want to use the test to save their clients from a death sentence. Umberto Delgado, charged with the shooting death of Tampa Police Corporal Mike Roberts. Kenneth Jackson, accused of kidnapping, raping, and stabbing a neighbor to death, her body discovered inside a stolen, burned-out minivan. Richard McTeer, prosecutors say he tossed his girlfriend's baby out of a car and onto I-275. And now, for the first time, at the same time, Hillsborough County criminal court judges are being asked to look at scans of their brains.
The defense would call Dr. Robert Thatcher.
On Friday, Delgado's attorney called Dr. Robert Thatcher, a man some say is a pioneer in quantitative electro encephalogram, or QEEG technology.
It's just the quantification using a computer of the electrical energies.
Is it possible that accused killers have brain defects so severe it can be exposed in picture form? Undeniable images, the kind a judge or a jury could look at and decide if someone should live or die.
It's like a electron microscope to go in more deeply, or like the Hubble telescope to look at things that you can't see just by eye.
But the assistant state attorney says Florida does not recognize QEEG as real forensic science, and also criticizes the doctor's motives.
The more NeuroGuide software that's sold puts more money in your pocket.
Well, yes, it's a business.
Tampa neuropsychologist William Lambos used Thatcher's program and his techniques to perform a QEEG on Delgado at the jail months ago. Prosecutors think his diagnosis is a stretch.
I believed it likely that he met the legal definition of insanity.
News Channel 8's search of court records shows the public defender also hired Lambos to examine Richard McTeer, Kenneth Jackson, and several others.
And the sensors are spaced in a way.
It looks like something out of this world, science fiction.
This is somewhat more or less what it looks like when it's on.
In his office, Dr. Lambos put the sensor cap on his own head to show us how, in about 10 minutes, he can record all the brainwave activity needed to diagnose a problem. What you're about to hear sounds complicated. Dr. Lambos makes a brain map by translating EEG wave readings into numbers and images, then compares it to Thatcher's database of, quote, normal brain maps. A report and expert testimony on a single case like this can cost the public defender's office and you, the taxpayer, more than $10,000. Lambos feels it's money well spent.
If I can add information that's valuable and helps a jury make a rational decision about whether somebody should be given one sentence versus another, I feel that I'm doing something valuable.
He hopes QEEG leads to big changes in the courts.
A phrase that I've heard before is that this might be considered, on the forensic side, the equivalent of the 21st century equivalent to DNA.
USF neuropsychiatrist Dr. Gabriel Dayarouskin says it's helpful in the Alzheimer's research he oversees at the Roskamp Institute, but he does not feel QEEG is ready for the courtroom.
I think it's a mistake.
Dr. Dayarouskin believes the 50 or so comparative databases that exist to date are not comprehensive enough.
You have to have a lot of clinical information beforehand if you are going to make a case that quantitative EEG can make a definitive diagnosis of anything. Once we do that, we can have sufficient information to move on the case. Before that, we can't, and that information is simply not there.
With the exception of one criminal case in Miami, Stetson Law professor Robert Beatty agrees and knows visuals can be powerful and persuasive to a jury.
You want to hear evidence, but you also want to see it. And the more inputs you can give a juror, the more likely you are to get your message across to that juror.
But QEEGs will only make a difference in cases like these when judges allow them as evidence.
It's the defense attorney's obligation to investigate the use of this. It's probably ultimately going to be the state's obligation to pay for it.
And Beatty says that could take years. The public defender does not discuss ongoing cases. Humberto Delgado's murder trial is set to begin next Monday, and we will keep you updated on what the judge decides about admitting that QEEG test evidence.